Hello everyone, welcome back, welcome back. This is Lolly. What I'm playing with now is children's board books. So they are chipboard books. Every page is chipboard, like this one here, Katie Duck Big Sister. So I don't know what prompted me, but I was at a thrift store and all of a sudden I just started thinking about die cutting on these chipboard books. So you can do that if you have a steel ruled die. So that would be one of these really thick ones, like this Sizzix one that I'm using is the book Passport 660331 by Eileen Hall. Because right here, excuse all the dust on it, right here, there's a little page for this particular book. And that makes this awesome sized cover. So this is 3.5 by 5. So these pages are really thin chipboard, but this book I noticed was thicker. So the difference is when you're doing one of these dies, if you're using something like your Big Shot, you would put your chipboard, if you had a thin one, this is thick, but if you had a thin one, you would put your chipboard there, trim it down to size, put your die on here, and run it through your Big Shot like this, no platform. And then for the Big Shot switch, it's the same thing. You just run it through like these with no platform. However, that works just fine for this thin one, but for these, they are much thicker. And so I will show you here real quick. And what you're going to do is just take this and take your razor blade and just cut right between the two pages there so that you have that freed and can run it through your machine. But what I noticed with this thick chipboard is that it wouldn't go through like this because it was too thick. And this wouldn't really cut enough. So what I did was I just put some cardstock there, and I have 4 sheets of heavy duty cardstock. So if you have thinner cardstock, you may need to use a little more. And so I would run that through. Obviously they need to fit to your machine. If you're working with a switch, this isn't too wide, but if you're working with the Big Shot, you would need to trim this down to the 6-inch width and put that through, and that will cut your pages. So this is what I have, but also think about working with the shapes, all the shapes that you may have of those steel ruled dies instead of just rectangles. So what I have here is I have pre-cut the cover, and then for the back, I went ahead and just glued 2 pieces of cardstock together to make it thicker. And then in between, I just cut various pieces of junk journal pages. Now you'll also notice on the inside of these, this is actually the cover of that book. If you don't like that, cover this up before punching your holes. I am going to use the cinch, and we are going to punch our holes out on that and make a journal. So I am using the cinch with the square holes. Okay. I normally don't want to store this with the handle down because I don't want to ruin the springs. I will give you underneath this video a link to my general use of this. Now, what I want to do, I said this is a 5-inch item. And so I'm looking here at the front, and I'm looking to make sure that this is going to punch the holes and not give me half a hole on the end, because I don't want half a hole. What I think I'm going to do is pull that one out, and let's run a test. Push it all the way to the back. Do I like that? Yes, I do. So now I'm going to go through and punch everything. And then I've already put these in the order that I want them. So as I pull these out, I'm going to lay them down this way. And I can put in, because this cuts chipboard, I can put several sheets in there all at once. The important thing is to remember to make sure you push it all the way in here. There is not at an angle, all the way up against this and all the way flat toward the back. Sometimes there's a little wiggling to pull them out without tearing. And then after I assemble this, I'm going to show you a flip through of all the papers that I have here. And I have rounded all the corners on my papers. So I see this one is not rounded. Now, if you have unusual shaped items like this, I would not put them through with others. I would make sure you do them individually. And I'm centering that the way I want it. Now that is all done. And so what we're going to do is turn this over and use these little hooks right here. Now I have, let's see, 3, 6, 9 holes, and so I'm going to use the 1 inch cinch wires. Now the way that you need to worry about this is how thick your journal is. So I think the 1 inch will be fine. I need 9 of these. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm going to lay that on there to make sure that's the right number of holes. And I want to cut it right here with the wire cutters. So you can see right at the end here, and I need to cut off this little extra piece here from the last time that I did this. Okay, so I'm going to put the square parts right there. Now what you need to do though is take your bottom part cover and flip it over this way. That is the way you want to do this, so that the joint, this is really bent up, so that the joint ends up being, let me see if I can straighten this out a little bit, so that the joint ends up being more on the inside of the journal instead of outside. We'll show you that later. See where I have my journal. Now I'm just going to start putting them in here like this. And we're going to do all of those. I'm going to take a special care when I get to those papers that are unusually shaped. I'm pulling them from the underneath. Trying to keep these in the same order that I had them. Okay, so this is a pocket. I really shouldn't have put, see what I did? I punched the hole while this was still in there. So I'm going to have to find something else for that pocket there. Okay, so we have that. We're going to bring this over here. Now, this needs to be on the 1, and because it's a 1 inch, this part has to do with the thickness of your coil. And I have the 1 inch coil. To lift this up, it says push and turn this to get this to a different coil thickness. Now I'm going to take this and see how there's these row and this row. These are going to go flat against the back here, like that. I'm going to hold that in there. Just hold that in there with both ends flat against there and push down. And that's all you have to do. However, I do like to go through and make sure that these are a little closer than they are right here. Just kind of nudge them over if it didn't do a good job. And this has to do with the fact that my wires were not perfectly straight when I put them in there. The reason we had flipped that back cover over the front was that now that joint is on the inside of the back cover as opposed to being out here where it's kind of annoying. Okay, now let's do a flip through of this. So when I am at thrift stores, I look at used and vintage papers. My favorite are graph papers and ledger papers. And this is just decorative cardstock from a thrift store. This was from a thrift store. It was something punched. You see that shine? It's reinforced. And this was something that was used before for a coil binding, but I just flipped it and used that out there. This is actually Braille paper. Pink papaya. This is a customer order form for pink papaya. This was emergency landing procedures. It was from a pilot's notebook, and I left the tab on there. There's a thank you card. Graph, love graph paper. I just used cardstock and did a decorative edge there. This is a map, not in English. Another one of those. I have several of the same types of papers in here, because I would take a sheet and cut it up into several different pieces. This is vintage music. Oh, this was upside down, but this is straight up and down. So, Another pocket here that did survive. There's ground operations. This is a vintage form, very old receipt paper. It is hard to cut into the vintage papers, I admit it, but I'm glad that I did it. And this is a vellum envelope. It was pre-made, and it was just the perfect shape. I just rounded the corners and put it in there. And this is a regular envelope, and I had these scraps from cutting down the papers to fit this journal. More of that vintage music paper. And that's it right there. So the only other thing I want to do is to possibly put a little bit of decoration on here. Not much, because she's so cute. So I just printed some words off on my Word document, and I did, "You're just Ducky." This is really pretty, so I could do that. This really shows up better, but I'm wondering about even this, or I think I will do 3. So therefore, what I'm going to do is the 1/16 mark on this. I am going to use my glue tube that I've got filled with Barely Art glue. And then I'm going to put that 1/16 up against there, right up against the edge of the white part. All right, and then I'm going to put that on black. Now it's too short to go this way, so I'm going to have to turn it this way. Okay, so that gives me a really oh, I love that look there. Now it could go right in the middle, it could go under her feet. You know, it's really however you want. I think I might do it just at an angle like this, so you can see both of her feet in there. Oh, that is so cute, and it's perfect. Now, I am going to put this in my shop. So as soon as this video is up, that means this is in my shop. I will give you a link to it down below if you are interested in purchasing it. I think this is a really, really adorable way of making little journal covers, and look at all the possibilities that you can come up with, you know, by depending on the children's book that you're doing. So thank you for watching. Make sure you look at those links down below.